Good evening and welcome back to but now it's a special meeting of the City Council of the City of Moreno Valley. I now call this meeting to order on June 14th at 9:21 p.m. City Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Jemison.
Yes.
Councilmember Molina.
Oh, he's on his way.
Councilmember Price.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Gabas absent. Mayor Gutierrez.
Present. The purpose of this meeting, thank you. The purpose of this meeting is to hold a public hearing and consider action on a public nuisance at property located at 24214 Jimson Place in Moreno Valley. Public comments on this matter will be taken up between staff's report and City Council deliberation. Questions or comments from the public are limited to 5 minutes per individual and must pertain to the subject under consideration. Those wishing to speak should complete and submit a goldenrod speaker slip to the bailiff. Speaker slips may be turned in only until the item is called for business. But I do want to remind you that it does have to pertain to the hearing item. Okay, so we're going to move on to public. Actually, where is it? Okay, there it is. Okay. So A1, public hearing to declare the property located at 24214 Jimson Place to be substandard pursuant to the California State Housing Law and the Moreno Valley Municipal Code. Staff report.
Mr. Mayor,
City Attorney.
I have here today our interim Deputy City Prosecutor, Ben Jones of my office, who's going to be doing the presentation.
Okay, great. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I think.
Oh, speak a little more into the mic.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
Can you hear me now? Okay,
Yeah.
so I think the first order of business is to make sure that there's no appearance here from the property owner, Lawrence C. Missler.
Okay, we don't see a Lawrence.
Okay. The purpose of this hearing was, it was done because a notice was issued to Mr. Missler requesting him to appear for a public hearing to determine, to show cause why the property should not be considered and declared a public nuisance and substandard. Seeing no appearance, I'll proceed with the city's side of the case. This property located at 24214 Jimson Place is substandard residential structure, used to be a single-family residence. It is a public nuisance. It is in violation of the Moreno Valley Municipal Code, and it is a dangerous and unsafe structure. The structure has a hole in the roof. It's abandoned. The owner has been absentee for a number of years. The structure was severely damaged by a fire dating back to 2010. And for years since that time, the city has been trying to contact the owner to obtain his compliance or his cooperation with the city with respect to abatement of the conditions on the property, and has been unable to contact the owner. As I said, there was a notice of hearing issued to the owner on June 3rd. There was no response received by the city. If the city council were to adopt this resolution, the effect of it would be to formally declare the property a public nuisance and to declare it a substandard residential property. The resolution would order the property owner to abate the conditions on the property via repair or demolition of the substandard structure within 30 days and abatement of the other conditions on the property, such as junk, trash, and debris. In the event the owner fails to comply within the 30-day time period, the resolution commands or authorizes the city attorney's office to perform the abatement by seeking a court order authorizing the city to raise and remove the residential structure and to abate the other conditions on the property at the owner's expense. The city would recover its cost via the normal procedure, special assessment recorded against the property. So all the findings you need are in the resolution. They're supported by the exhibits, which are the evidence attached to the resolution. Exhibit A to the resolution is a notice in order to abate that was issued on April 22nd, 2016. This was issued the day after an inspection was conducted of the interior of the structure on the property. The city officers who conducted the inspection are next to me on my left, city building and safety supervisor and code compliance field supervisor. So they can answer any questions as to the specific conditions affecting the interior of the structure on the property, but I can tell you that the structure is at risk of collapse and is also a severe fire hazard. So with that, I'll turn it over to questions.
Just a quick question, it kind of relates to this a little bit, but what's the criteria to get to this level? You know, like for example, because I know, you know, I've recently had, you know, a resident that was concerned, you know, about the standard of living, you know, in her apartment and, you know, and all those kinds of things. So, so my question is, how come, you know, could we do that residential area as well?
Yeah, so, well,
Ben,
the
okay.
oh, sorry.
Oh, well, I don't know, because I think Steve knows what I'm talking about. Steve Alvarado. So like what I'm wondering is, you know, how does it get to this level? Because the resident that came to me, you know, doesn't have a kitchen, doesn't have a roof, it's infested with roaches and, you know, and all that. So couldn't that place be one of these or fall into this category?
Mayor and members of the council, good evening. Steve Alvarado. That particular case, Mayor, is a little bit different from this particular situation. This situation is a substandard with numerous housing code violations. That one also had some housing code violations, but not up to the same standards as this particular property. I could provide an update later or tomorrow on that property. I think Nick has an update regarding the Pepper Court.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was like a certain criteria, or is it just up to the council that when it just comes to a hearing to declare it as, you know, as a substandard?
I can answer that.
Okay.
A property is substandard when it is in violation of the Health and Safety Code, section 17920.3. There are a bunch of conditions that are enumerated in that code section, and the text of that code section is included in the April 22nd notice to abate, which is Exhibit A to your resolution. So on page 2 of the notice to abate, you see the violations they were cited for, the specific violations, items A through I, subparagraph A through I, denotes the specific violations under the state housing law that render this property substandard. When any of these conditions exist in residential property to the extent that it endangers health and safety, the property is substandard. So you can see that there are a number of different conditions there that render the property substandard. Most notably, I would say, is the structural hazards, that it's at risk of collapse. And then of course, any nuisance under any violation of the Moreno Valley Municipal Code is a public nuisance, and any nuisance is also a substandard condition.
But I'm sure, you know, we want to work with the residential company, you know, that's kind of what we do usually. Right.
Here are some examples under 17920.3. It's lacks adequate sanitation, contains structural hazards, lacks electrical wiring, lacks plumbing, lacks effective waterproofing. So there's a laundry list under this section. And so the job is for staff to go out there and inspect and come back with a inspection report. And we look at what they see out there, and we compare it to the code, and we work together and match those up. And so if we have any of those violations, then we can proceed with a process like this. But the facts have to back up we have to have the facts out there to support our findings legally.
You're correct, Mayor. Yeah, we try to work with the property owner best we can. Our ultimate goal is compliance to, you know, fix these properties, make them safe, whether it's a tenant or owner occupied. That's what we strive for, yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Jemison?
Yeah, I think it's important for the residents to understand the avenues that were taken to try to find the owner, because I don't think we want to project this sense that we can just go ahead and wipe out a residence at the drop of a dime. And it's definitely not a drop of the dime. This has been since 2010. So can we clarify the avenues that we took?
Yeah, I can chime in on that a little bit, Councilmember Jemison. We've made numerous. I've lost count of how many times we've tried to contact the property owner, and there was actually some confusion, I think, along the line where there was a different representative that came in to City Hall on this property. So we've had multiple parties, multiple locations, multiple efforts made via U.S. mail, phone calls, any way we could. And we've been unsuccessful with this property owner, I think, at every turn.
Well, I appreciate the residents who stood up and said enough is enough, because they're the ones that brought it to my attention. And I was confused from day one as to why it took so long. I definitely want to commend both your department at this point and the attorney's department. The two of you have worked diligently to make this happen. And so hopefully we can learn from this, know what we need to do in the future, because there are other properties out there in our city that could probably fall under the same guidelines. So I thank you both of your departments and your personnel, for really moving forward once we really knew what we were capable of doing and how we could do it. So thank you.
Questions from Councilmember Price?
Yes, and I think it's been partially answered, but my understanding is his house burned down in 2010, and it's been in this condition and continually getting worse since then. It's hard to imagine it takes 6 years. Then the neighbors didn't take a bulldozer and knock it down themselves. So I'd like to, since we talked about streamlining processes tonight, if we could streamline this process so that we don't, as I told you at break, there was a house over close to me that sat vacant for at least a couple of years after it burnt. And again, the neighbors are the ones who brought it to the city's attention, and we got it. The city tore it down. I'd like to see if we can come up with a process that doesn't take 6 years. I mean, if we can't get a hold of the owner, we can certainly put a lien on the property,
A good idea.
to knock it down. But I'd hate to have lived next door to this person for 6 years and have this house. And I'm looking at the fence, and I'm surprised we don't have homeless. It's so bad, homeless people don't even want to live in it. That's how bad it is. So. If we could just come up with streamline a process so that we don't have to wait 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, and get it done sooner. And I appreciate everything you've done to get it to us tonight, and trying to play Columbo and hunt the owner down. So thank you very much.
And I think it says a strong message, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Councilmember Molina?
I want to thank the attorney, Steve Quintanilla, and Mr. Alvarado. If somebody was to go into this house and the roof caved in on them and killed them, who'd be liable for it?
Property owner.
Property owner? But still, but wouldn't they go after the city for not condemning it and knocking it down?
Probably, but we
Yes,
can get out of
yeah.
that one.
Yeah, they probably put the city in there too. We've had two houses in my immediate vicinity that laid vacant for a long time, and one of them was on Davis Road, Davis Street, and I like the way you handled that one. Yes, this scene.
Actually, thanks to Ben and
Ben?
Steve and your building department.
Yeah, well, thank you all, because, once they tore down the vegetation, the house was exposed, and it used to be a beautiful property at one time, and it came down to that condition. So all of this comes down to, just trying to find the owner. You have to find the owner first, let them know, and make sure that they know that their property is substandard, or can you just
We have to make a good faith effort to contact the owner. And so the first thing we do is we look at the county's records, and we send notices to the record owner, that's basically the one who pays the property taxes. We also have to notify anybody who has a property interest in the property. such as anyone who has a mortgage on the property, anybody who has a tenant in common or a joint tenant. And what we do is that we retain basically an insurance policy from a title company. That insurance policy ensures that if we forget or we do not serve somebody who has a ownership interest in it and we take the house down, then insurance covers our costs with respect to liability.
Good.
And I should also point out, too, that all the costs associated with this abatement process is going to be subject to reimbursement by the property owner. So whoever owns that property is going to have a special assessment, which is like a lien recorded against that property. And special assessments have the same weight as property taxes, meaning that they rise above any mortgages or any other liens that are on the property.
Seeing the whole list here of everything. He said he has a picture of it, and this is the first time I actually seen the property, how bad it is. I never went inside, I seen it from outside, because I think we're not supposed to go inside those kind of properties.
We won't let you in that.
The ceiling will fall in on me with my luck. So anyways, I think it should come down myself.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I believe we have some interested members of the public who want to comment.
Oh, yeah, I haven't. I was gonna get to, and I wanted to also thank, I know this isn't really questions, but I just wanted to thank you guys as well, Nick, Steve Alvarado, Ben, Steve Quintanilla, and Alan. And then I also I'm just kind of combining my comments as well. But I also would like to kind of see like a criteria, maybe, and to be a little, I think that's good. That way, a quicker process, that way we can really show, hey, that, we're on this. And also, like I mentioned for that other case too as well, we don't want it to go for years and, and especially if people have kids as well. That's when it's really dangerous. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up the hearing. Okay, any public comments?
We have 2 requests to speak, Rafael Brugueras and Tom Gerald.
Good evening, staff, council members, and guests and residents that I was still waiting to speak. I got up this morning and I put the address in my phone. I went on my GPS and I went to the location. Man, I had to see it for myself. But I'm glad to meet Steve because I got to see his photos on the website and all the pictures that he took. And that drove me to go look at it. And pictures have a lot of words, but being there in person, the one thing he could not capture was the stench that's there when I was there. So if the wind was blowing towards my truck, it smelled dead, that corner. Old wood, old stucco, probably whatever is dead inside there was out, coming through the hole. But think about this, council members, because you're going to have to make a decision what to do with this property. People have watched this for 6 years in their neighborhood. And this is not in the middle of the street. This is on the corner, a large lot. I mean, this is a pretty good property there. And people watched it for 6 years. And you know what happens when you look at something like for 6 years? People lose interest of taking care of their own property because nobody cares. And something like this, like Mr. Price mentioned, should not take 6 years. It should be a lot shorter when somebody does not respond to their subpoenas or their notices. If it was my car, they have it in 3 months. Goodness, in 3 months. The house that I lost in 2009, it didn't take them that long. In 4 months, they declare it foreclosure. Here, we're allowing chemicals to flow out of this property because remember, sitting there for 6 years, it rained on it. And think about all that water that dried up in there and all the dead animals and everything that was in there at one time before I think they boarded it up because it looked like brand new wood. Okay, they boarded up all the windows, all the doors. I mean, you couldn't get in unless you broke the wood. So they're not going to let you in because they boarded it up, okay? So what I'm trying to say to you is we have to make a decision tonight to bring down this property. And the good thing, hearing from the attorney, is that we're gonna have it on the assessment. So later you'll recover the loss, not the loss, because it's not a loss, but the money that has to be put up today, okay, to get it down. I mean, think about it. Justin Molina just mentioned he hasn't seen it and he just saw the photo. If you go there tomorrow and look at the building and smell the stench, you'll understand what we're talking about tonight, that we need to make it happen. Give the staff the direction to find a contractor, however it goes, to be able to demo this place and knock it down and make that corner proud. I mean, you can grow a flower and make it look prettier than what it looks there now. So please, don't take long. I mean, it's terrible. You got to understand, it smells real bad.
Take your word on the smell.
Okay. Thank you so much for listening.
Nick's got a
Thank
tractor.
you, Rafael. Okay,
Do you have a
Tom?
tractor?
Thank you, Mayor, council members, members of the staff and the public, both here in the chambers and watching at home on MTV or the internet. First, I want to ditto Mr. Bergaris' comments. He said it very well. And the older thing, I can only imagine. Keep in mind, my background is in building and development, and last I knew, everything I put up is still standing, starting 30 years ago. So, but the point is, this is an acute hazard. When I saw the pictures, Rafael showed me the pictures, that's such an attractive nuisance. And, despite the fact we think we could get out of the litigation, I'm sure there's attorneys out there sharp enough, and I thank you, Councilman, for bringing it up, that they'd at least get a settlement out of the city, because they can, this is ugly. And but to go this long, I think with this action, you need to find some way not only to expedite this, but to use this as a pilot project so we don't have another 6-year delay. And thank you, Councilman Price, for doing that. But like I say, it's it's executive type place. I'd have been crawling around as a kid and probably got something bonked on my head. So anyhow, it's very, very dangerous. And so, like I said, I'd like to see you go forward with that. So I support the action. And then, you're talking about odor nuisances and other things. If the city's interested in maybe an unpermitted and unauthorized marijuana clinic, be happy to work with your staff and bring you a nice pilot project for that. So, anyhow, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Okay, so the hearing is closed. Any deliberation, or, pretty much kind of deliberated already, kind of.
Yeah.
So, is everybody okay if we just entertain a motion?
Move to accept
Or do you
staff's.
want to?
I'm entertaining a motion to bring the house down and everything that goes with it and all the litigation, and give the city attorney the authorization.
I second that motion.
You
to
could do that
burn
by
the house
adopting
down
the
and-
resolution.
Okay, so a motion by Councilmember Molina and a second by Councilmember Price. Now, you had a question?
To adopt the resolution.
Yes.
And it accomplishes all of that.
Okay, please vote.
I just want to know one thing. Does this beat the Maxwell property? The one on Davis?
The one that we took care of last time? Well, what do you mean by beat?
I mean, as far as,
That was a much larger property.
that was a
but-
much larger, yeah.
Yeah.
You see any Rolls Royces in there, vintage ones? Yes.
Four yes and one absent. All right, so this meeting is adjourned, and we'll go ahead and adjourn also in memory of the victims of Orlando and also of Nick Ferguson, who was a superintendent as well. The city, so the meeting is adjourned at 9:44 p.m.
Oh, it's past my bedtime.